Hello everybody, today we'll be reacting to some more true, in quotation marks, scary stories animated. So, with all that said and done, sit back, get comfortable, cause here we go! Okay. So, keeping a little bit of the festive spirit, I think Halloween already went by or it's coming up very soon. It's October. Halloween Kills either came out today or it's coming out in 2 days. I don't know. I can't remember. I can't really count. I'm not good at math. Anyway, I got 6 Halloween scary stories animated. We're going to be reacting to 2 of them right now because we already reacted to 60 Bleak Meat Canyon. This video was so gracefully given to us by Martin Animations. Go check him out. As I've said on many occasions, I can't leave links, so therefore, go do that on your own time. Let's get into it.
When I was 21, I lived with my 2 friends, Bruce and Ollie.
Move
We
out.
lived in a small house in a nice family-friendly neighborhood in the suburbs of our
Yeah,
major
just move
city.
out.
Ollie owned the house and occupied the master bedroom on the main floor, and Bruce had the other
Ollie.
bedroom on the main floor.
Skateboarder.
My bedroom was on the mostly finished basement, which was great because I had a ton of privacy and a lot of open space. There was a side door that could be accessed from the basement, so I could come and go as I pleased without bothering the other roommates. We were all pretty close, but it was nice to feel like I had my own living space, even though there were 3 of us in the house.
Yep.
At the time, Bruce and I were huge fans of Halloween and the fall season in general.
At this time, you guys need to get off drugs because you look like you're on meth and you look like you're on crack. Okay.
But being adults and having full-time jobs, it wasn't really ideal for us to go out and attend Halloween parties like a lot of the other people we knew. Also, Halloween fell on a Tuesday this year, so instead we decided to just watch some horror movies in my basement bedroom and just hang out and relax. After we watched a couple of movies, we started to get a little bored.
Couch
It was about 11 p.m. and the trick-or-treaters were home, and most people were in for the night. Knowing we had to work in the AM, we decided it would be a good idea for us to go on a quick walk and call it a night. There is something about the air on Halloween night.
You guys are oddly in step.
It's like when you go on a vacation
walking.
to Florida, and the night breeze just feels and smells different.
I bet the guy on the left's got
That's how it is on Halloween. It's nostalgic and can almost give you a euphoric feeling.
It does. There's something about it.
Anyway, as we started to walk in the quiet and somewhat desolate neighborhood, we approached the park. Now we walk through this park all the time during the day, probably at least 50 times at this point.
Obviously, you never watched a horror movie.
It was a little park right in the middle of the neighborhood. The park had a main entrance from one of the busier streets and a back entrance from the street we lived on. The back entrance was covered with a lot of trees and a very small wooded area. About 30 yards from the entrance, there were 3 baseball fields, a pavilion, and a basketball court. We walked into the back entrance where all the trees were, and it was nearly pitch black, but there was a low orange hue from the streetlight barely making its way through the trees. As we walked through the wooded area, we both stopped abruptly. We thought we saw a man standing at the end of the path. The figure was completely still, and it was so dark we couldn't be sure what it was.
I'm not funny.
I called out,
I'm sick.
"Hey!" to the
What's
figure,
up, bro?
No response. I suggested we should turn around, but Bruce said we should check it out, which was unlike him because I was usually the braver of us two.
And Bruce is going to be paying the hospital bills when you get your legs and arms chopped off.
As we got closer, it was clear it was a man standing there. The man was completely still and had both of his hands in his front hoodie pocket. His head was down facing the ground. Trying not to freak out, we decided to slowly back up and make our way to the street and our house without further confrontation. Before we even moved, we heard a noise next to us coming from both sides. Trying to focus our eyes in the darkness, we saw 2 more figures moving towards us in the woods. Unlike the other guy just standing there, these people were approaching us. I wish I could explain the feeling I felt inside me during this point. It's like the
something else
pit in your stomach when a cop pulls up behind you with his lights on, but 100 times worse. Fight or flight kicked in, and we turned and sprinted full speed out of that park and onto our street.
What is this, Family Guy?
Looking back to see if they were following us.
Guys, run.
We ran right to our house and locked the doors behind us. While sitting in the
Look
basement,
like the fat guy.
we had all the lights off and we were trying to look out the basement windows to
And
see
you
if
got
we could
three
see if
oddly
anyone followed
specifically
us or
spaced windows
possibly saw the house we
above
went
each
into.
other. Yeah, if
We were
a
so
flood happens,
scared
you
we
guys
didn't
are
know what to
screwed.
do. Were we in real danger? Was it someone just playing a prank? After about half an hour or
Oh,
so,
no.
we decided that they most likely didn't follow us, and it was probably okay to go to sleep, especially considering we both had work in the morning.
Yep.
At about 2:30 in the morning, Bruce woke me up. He said he thought he heard something outside his bedroom window. I went to his room and looked out the window, and I
Was
could
your
see
dad?
a pumpkin laying in our backyard. This was concerning because we didn't have any pumpkins outside our house. We didn't set any up for decorations or anything
Oddly
like that.
specific serial killer.
For the second time tonight, we were terrified and decided to go into the living room. While in the living room, we made sure we had the house lights off and began looking out the front windows. Within the first minute of looking, there they were. 3 men standing in the middle of the road just staring at our
Look like
house.
the KKK.
We thought about calling
Wow,
the
that is
police, but
definitely going to
what were we going to
indicate
tell
something.
them? There are 3 guys not standing on our property who may or may not have thrown a pumpkin in our backyard. We just sat in the living room for about 10 minutes trying to think of something.
When did the blue guy
anything we
wake
could
up?
do. We made sure the front
And
door
you're
was
holding your
locked
knife
and
upside
grabbed a
down.
baseball bat and I think a kitchen knife. We looked out the window again and the 3 men were gone. Nothing but the illumination from the street lights. For the rest of the night, we stayed in the living room watching SportsCenter until we eventually dozed off. Morning finally came. As we got ready for work, we
I guess
just
you were
agreed it was probably
relieved.
just a Halloween prank and we should move on and forget about it. However, when I got to my car, there was a note on my windshield that said, "Happy Halloween," with a smiling face sticker on it. What I read next gave me the same feeling I had just had a few hours before when I thought we were in real danger. At the bottom on the paper it said, "P.S. Good thing you lock your doors." What would these people have done if the doors were unlocked? Bruce and I both decided to call in from work and stay home that day.
You know what I would have done? Whoopsie, you gonna die today, boy! No!
Nothing else of note happened regarding this incident, but it's just a reminder that it doesn't matter how quiet and nice a neighborhood you think you live in. On Halloween, anything can happen.
Uh-huh. Nice. Next video!
As we slowly enter the fall season, I'd like to share a story with you that happened to me a few years ago. I have mentioned this story to some of my close personal friends and family, many of which don't believe me, and that's fine. They probably think I'm just joking around or trying to scare them, but I know I
Well,
experienced
maybe.
something that night, and I wish
Maybe
I
the
had a
email
better
you sent him was
explanation
wrong,
for
too.
it. At the time these events took place, I lived on a quiet street a little outside the city, but not quite into the suburbs. My street had a big rundown house at the very end of the block that was across from an unused parking lot and an out-of-business bar. The person who inhabited the house before it became dilapidated was Mrs. Morgan. Mrs. Morgan was an old curmudgeon in every sense of the word. Every time my friends and I would walk by the house, she would yell at us and make some insanely random comment like we were trampling her garden or using her garbage to play hide and seek or some other incoherent nonsense that wasn't true.
She's
Even
old.
though my friends and I did get into some adolescence trouble around the neighborhood,
Her pinky toes
we
on
never
her
did
crafts.
anything to
You
Mrs. Morgan.
tell her that.
Our parents always told us that we should try and be nice. I mean,
Your
she
mom
was
looks
a
like a
widow
man.
and had no children, so it must have
With
been
a
a pretty
towel on
lonely
his head.
life. Rewind about 3 years ago, and Mrs. Morgan unfortunately passes away, and the house becomes abandoned, and I believe eventually condemned. At least there were signs on the boarded-up windows and doors, but I never got close enough to read what they said. Needless to say, it became an eyesore for the community in what was a pretty quiet and uneventful street. My girlfriend at the time only lived a couple of blocks, and I would usually walk to and from her house when we hung out. It was literally a 4-minute walk tops, so it was no big deal. I would pass Mrs. Morgan's abandoned house and the empty parking lot with the out-of-business bar every time I walked to and from her house. Now fast forward to a few years ago, the last time I ever made that walk. It was about 3 a.m. on Halloween night, I guess technically November 1st, and I was walking home from my girlfriend's house. I was supposed to be home way earlier in the night, but we both fell asleep watching scary movies and pigging out on the extra candy her parents didn't hand out.
Okay.
As I made it to my street and
Good date.
started my
Good
walk
date.
past
A date
Mrs.
I'd
Morgan's
go on
house, I heard
with
a
a girl
noise.
if I ever
I stopped
did
for a
get
minute to make
girlfriend,
sure
which
it
is,
wasn't a
you know,
skunk because for
very
some
unlikely.
odd reason that's the first thing that popped in my mind when I heard the noise. I slowed down a little bit and looked
Probably
at the house
homeless
as I
dude.
proceeded
Just
cautiously. That's when I
forget
noticed
it.
the front door that was usually boarded up and had a sign posted on it was now open. I tried to rationalize why the door was now open, saying to
Druggies,
myself
homeless
it was probably the
people,
wind, but
curious white
then
teenage
again,
girls who
it was a
walk into
beautiful,
a
calm
serial
night.
killer's trap.
I then paused
You
in
know,
front of the
typical
house
stuff.
and looked directly at the front door. And that's when I saw her, Mrs. Morgan, right there, staring back at me. I knew for sure it was her.
Oh, I got
She
chills.
passed away, and the
Oh,
house was
God.
clearly unlivable for
Oh.
anyone else.
Oh.
At this point, I was so scared that I
Oh,
just
no.
shouted something out.
Holy crap. I'm legit goosebumping up right now, if that's a word.
I don't even remember if it was words or just noises. The figure stepped onto the front porch and continued to stare at me. I broke my stare and just started running back to my house, turning back every now and then to see if she was still staring at me or perhaps following me. I made it back to my house probably 30 seconds later and opened the side door and went down to my room. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I'm not sure if I was overtired or just had scary things in my subconscious with it being Halloween and watching movies all night, but I know I saw Mrs. Morgan standing there only a couple of feet away from me. Whether it was a true paranormal encounter or something that my mind made me think I saw, I won't ever know for sure. But hey, they always say that the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest on Halloween. And now,
Nobody has ever
I
said
actually
that.
believe it.
Wait. Am I... Okay, before the jump scare happens, I'm just going to end the video off here because, you know, that's for 3 videos. Anyway, with all that said and done, how about you go and tell a friend that that one guy is that guy.